and welcome to Oak Grove Media and Film. This video is aimed at students who are studying film studies at GCSE level and with the EDUQAS board or WJEC. So in today's video we will be having a look at one of the Paper 1 films, namely Browning's Dracula from 1931. We'll be looking at how the various contexts of the film are reflected in one key sequence and also how microelements are used to convey meaning. So, Dracula was released in 1931. This was near the start of America's Great Depression. This had been brought about by the Wall Street crash in 1929, which was a catastrophic day on America's stock exchange, which led to a number of banks and businesses collapsing in the matter of a few hours. The economic crash of that day had repercussions for decades to come, and really did lead to extraordinarily hard times for the average everyday American. All in all, times were very difficult for Americans during this era, and cinema was something that provided a much needed break and escape from the hardships of day-to-day living. Dracula was definitely a film which provided a thrilling distraction for audiences of the time. It was a world where you could escape into gothic horror and be amazed by supernatural intrigue. However, in addition to that, it also was something that was a little bit deeper in terms of the fact that it reflected societal anxieties of the time and even some of the prejudices of the time. Let's take a look at one of the key sequences. So this is the introduction of Count Dracula. This is the scene where the audience get to see him properly for the first time and also hear from him as well. Okay, so this is key sequence 1, which is our introduction to Dracula. So before we get to see Dracula for the first time, we get these shots of Renfield on his way to the castle. And here you've got this really great establishing shot of a barren landscape. There's literally no land or greenery to speak of, which is really looking to foreshadow how Dracula is an undead being that drains anything and everything of life. So it's probably quite apt that he lives somewhere that is completely lifeless. Additionally, you can see in the mise-en-scène here that the sky is darkening, so there is this sense of pathetic fallacy or an impending doom. Things certainly don't look good for Renfield at this early stage. Okay, so let's carry on playing here. We get a nice cross dissolve here to the image of a castle on a cliff top. Now, this is a real staple of a lot of horror films where you have an isolated location that is basically in the middle of nowhere. And what it does is it creates a real sense of jeopardy for the person or the victim who is going into this isolated location. We as an audience understand that there really is nowhere that they are going to be able to turn. There is no avenue of help that they can go down. So at this early stage of the film, again, we are raising the stakes once again for Renfield's fate. So let's carry on. Okay, so we cross-dissolve there again, and now we find ourselves in this crypt-like setting or basement, and there is this really nice slow push in to the coffin, which is just about to open up and reveal Dracula's hand. There he is. So coffins, in terms of mise-en-scène, they're obviously something that we associate with the dead. So we, the audience, are given a glimpse of the danger that is awaiting Renfield, because we are associating with, whatever is in the coffin, with death. And it really does start to give us a sense of what Dracula might be, and we perhaps understand how whatever he is will be something that is dangerous ultimately to Renfield. Now these shots here, specifically of the animals rather than the brides and the insect, and there's one there as well, those insert shots of a possum, an insect, and a rat are significant because the ordering of the shots really make sure that the audience are making a connection between, who we can see now on screen, Dracula, and those other creatures, which are all nocturnal creatures. So we make this connection that potentially they are the same as Dracula. Dracula is a creature of the night. Also, it's interesting that they start off facing the camera and then they turn away, as if maybe frightened by something, which potentially is indicating to the audience that Dracula is the thing that they fear. He is an apex predator. He is, top of the food chain here. Now, if I carry on playing here, this is this really iconic push in to this first look at Count Dracula. Now, the cinematography is interesting here because we will see this again in the film. It becomes this sort of motif as the film progresses, where you get this interesting use of lighting to illuminate Count Dracula's eyes. So from the outset, it is drawing our attention to his gaze with the suggestion that he's potentially hypnotic. He has hypnotic powers because we're being sort of drawn to his eyes here in the way that his victims are often drawn to his eyes, and it's the way he lures people in. But it's that nice kind of beam of light that hits just on the eyes there. Additionally, the character is shrouded in black. Black is a colour that we often associate with villainy, but he is, the actor who's been cast, quite sort of suave and gentlemanly looking. The slicked back hair starts to give us this impression of, I guess, kind of sophistication. Dracula is, as we'll see as the film progresses, a charming character, and it's how he lures people in with his suaveness and his sophistication, and it's the way that he entices his victims and draws them close to him. So we get the use of some layering of diegetic sound there, which has obviously been done very purposefully to once again connect Dracula to creatures of the night. We've just heard sort of squeaking of the rats, but then also the baying of a wolf in the distance. Wolves being something that hunt for their prey at night time and should be feared. So by having that sound layered over the top of the visual of Dracula as he moves towards the staircase is indicating to the viewer that he is also something that should be feared and something that people should take care of. Okay, I'm going to move ahead slightly to Renfield's arrival at the castle. Okay, so here he is, literally in a white hat. At this point in the film, Renfield is one of the good guys. He is unsuspecting and is about to become our first victim of Dracula. Now, this shot here is incredible. This lovely wide establishing shot of the interior of Dracula's home, and we can see Renfield just centrally framed right down at the bottom in a silhouette, and he's absolutely tiny in comparison to this grand and imposing interior here. He looks really sort of small and vulnerable in comparison. The interior as well is dark. It is only illuminated by some beams of moonlight, so we might sort of take that as a metaphor of him walking into this darkness. So, eventually he's going to be walking into a trap, and he's going to be walking into being transformed, being hypnotized to do Dracula's bidding throughout the rest of the film. The other thing as well, just to note, is the fact that the castle is in complete disrepair. So once again, signposting to the audience that Dracula is inhuman. He is not a living person, a living thing. So he is not really kind of living in any kind of normal sort of state. He doesn't need luxury. He doesn't need to have creature comforts. But everything is kind of this visual indication of the danger that Renfield is currently in. Okay, so we get these slightly hokey looking bats cut to here. I would assume that they are meant to be the brides of Dracula, as there are three of them, and we just saw three women waking in the crypt with him. But even if the audience at this point don't realise that vampires can transform into bats, it's still something, a creature that people don't associate positive thoughts with. So it's just, again, signalling into the audience Renfield is in danger. We've got all of these little visual hints and cues that tell us that he's not safe. So a low angle shot is being used here to introduce Dracula, and we know that low angle shots tend to give the subject power. It makes them look more imposing, more strong, and we definitely get the sense that Dracula is the one that's in control in this situation. And another cut to some nocturnal creatures, so carrying on that theme in this sequence that introducing Dracula, of connecting him to these nocturnal creatures of the night, and really labouring that point to ensure the audience are aware that Dracula can only come out at night, just like these animals do. This is a fantastic shot here. It's a great use of mise-en-scène to really offer the audience this very sort of visual, metaphorical, symbolism. Dracula is stood on the staircase, and we have got a huge spider's web above him. Really sort of this idea that signposting to the audience this idea that Dracula is the spider, he is the predator, and he is awaiting his prey. He's waiting to capture Renfield, who's down here and currently has his back to him, so he's really vulnerable to this impending attack. But it's such a great use of mise-en-scène to communicate meaning really clearly to the viewer as to what is going to happen to Renfield. Okay, so still in that low angle, giving him the power. And look,
I am Dracula.
Renfield is shown in a high angle, which, obviously opposite to the low angle, is showing him as vulnerable, as weak, and really signalling the fact that he is the victim here, and he is the one that's in danger.
Oh, it's really good to see you. I don't know what happened to the driver and my luggage, and with all this, I thought I was in the wrong place.
I bid you welcome.
Okay, so I wanted to just pause for a moment and talk about accents. So Dracula is played by a Romanian actor called Bela Lugosi. So he has a strong Eastern European accent. In comparison, Renfield has a transatlantic American accent. I think he is trying to sound English, but he does actually sound perhaps a little bit more American than he does English. But that was a fairly standard accent for the time in the 1930s in America. Now, I mentioned earlier about context and how the film sort of subtly is shaped by the context of the time. And in 1930s America, there was a spate of xenophobic sentiment, specifically to immigrants. After the Wall Street crash, people were in a desperate situation financially. There was not enough wealth, there was not enough employment to go around, and so Americans started to feel, some Americans anyway, started to feel resentment towards immigrants that were coming into the country, and there was this sort of sense of xenophobia that came about from people feeling that jobs were being taken by outsiders. So there was this sort of sentiment, this fear of the outsider. So the fact that they have cast a Romanian actor who has quite a heavy accent in this role from the outset is going to create the sense of an outsider to the audience, especially to a 1930s audience. So potentially already create some negative feeling towards his character just through the use of the actor's accent here. So interesting there, the performance of the actor playing Renfield. You saw Dracula, arms open, sort of showing that charm, that sophistication, like sort of the welcoming presence as he invites him up the stairs. But Renfield, or the actor who plays Renfield, looks almost hypnotized, blank look on his face, eyes open wide and sort of almost compelled to move forwards. So it's really getting quite early on this idea that Dracula is powerful in what he can compel people to do. The other thing I just wanted to mention as well, which I'll just quickly go back to, is the fact that Dracula is holding a candle. So we might talk about the symbolism of the flame, of fire, fire being something that annihilates, destroys, takes all of the life out of any situation if left unprotected, if left to run rampant. So that might be an interesting sort of symbolic connection to make to Dracula. He's holding this flame, so we might sort of associate those ideas of destruction, of devastation, of the fire with Dracula's character and what he's capable of.
Listen to them. Children of the night. What music they make.
So still in that high angle there, and Dracula is about to literally walk through the spider's web. He didn't disturb it though. I think the suggestion that it's his web. And then Renfield, look at that shot there. Renfield literally is being lured in here. And that's to come through the spider's web. Oh, into the trap.
The spider spinning his web for the unwary fly. The blood is the life, Mr. Renfield.
And use of the diegetic dialogue there to really kind of hammer home the point that Dracula is the spider, he's the predator, and Renfield is the fly, the prey. And there's also even the mention of blood there as well. to foreshadow obviously what it is that keeps Dracula undead, or, you know, how he's able to survive as a dead being through drinking life's blood.
Yes.
And here we have it. Renfield has definitely been captured. I hope you found this video useful. Maybe it's something you can use for revision. Perhaps you could try a practice question. It's useful for not only the stepped questions for Dracula, but you could also potentially use some of the content for a context or a microanalysis question for the comparison as well. If you did find the video useful, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel for more content. Thanks very much. See you next time. Bye-bye.